You're tuned into the It's Real podcast with your hosts, Kayla Callender and Andrew Yagi. Each week, we'll talk about what happens behind the scenes working full-time in real estate and share with you real-life stories, our successes and failures as we work to help consumers and industry professionals reach their real estate and real-life goals. Here we go.
Welcome to episode 41 of the It's Real podcast. I'm Kayla Callender and I'm a mortgage lender.
And I'm Andrew Yagi and I'm a real estate agent.
Hello, Andy Yagi. How are you?
I am doing well, Kayla. How about yourself?
I'm well. I'm good. The sun is shining. With the blizzard has passed. The snowpocalypse has passed.
It has.
And I'm just so ready for some spring weather. How about you? What's going on in your world?
Yeah, kind of the same. I'm ready too. You know, we ended up with one snow day and 1 2-hour late for school.
Oh man.
And yeah, it just, I don't know. I feel like, you know, we were getting some good momentum. You know, I had just listed even some lake properties, Kayla, and seeing a lot of activity.
Yeah.
Even, you know, one lake new development, we had about 18 cars drive out into the development, you know, a couple of weekends ago. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know, someone at the dance, you know, puts their hand on the DJ's record and you hear just, it comes to a screeching halt. So that's how I feel. You know, real estate's been all of a sudden just really quiet with this little spell of weather.
Isn't that funny how just inconvenience of snow keeps people from looking at homes or dream homes?
Right, for sure.
We will see some lake people coming about, I feel like.
We will.
Soon. Yeah.
When are you headed out to the lake next?
Next weekend. So I don't know what we'll be doing or what projects, but we want things done before summer. So
yeah. So the tough pieces about, you know, having a lake property and spending time out there is just that you end up spending so much time when the weather's nice, all of those nice weekends, you know, just working and not enjoying it. And obviously you guys did a lot of work on your property and, you know, took something that was very dated and made it gorgeous, which is rewarding, but now it's time to enjoy it.
Now it's time to enjoy. And I mean, it's one of those things though. It's like, we've got all winter. You can get out there, do the jobs you need to do, and now go enjoy summers. Our summers are so short here. We need to find a way to enjoy them and, you know, take more Fridays off, things like that. So we'll see.
Awesome. Kayla, what else is going on in your world and whether it's life or mortgage or what can you tell us?
You know, this is kind of like when gala season starts. So I'm starting to buy my dresses for gala season and find, you know, which, you know, organizations I want to support. So I'm seeing a lot of just my calendar getting more full to be able to support everybody and nonprofits, et cetera. So that's been, you know, when I look at my calendar, that's something that's really been filling up. I don't know if you guys attend many, but it's just between now and May, it just gets crazy, but it's so good because I love to connect with people for a common cause. And, you know, even yesterday we had an event here in Fargo. It was called it's a Women's Chamber Connect event, and it's called Intentional Collisions. And intentional collisions, essentially it's like speed dating, but speed networking. And so there were 80 mentors and I was a mentor. And so people would have like this booklet and they could come, you know, talk to me if they wanted to. And there were about 80 mentees, people attending. And so every 8 minutes, the clock or whatever would chime and you'd switch, switch people. And that was really interesting. I've never done that, but I feel like it was so efficient, especially for people like you and me, Andy, who want to network and meet people. Like, what a way to 8 minutes. That's all you got. And then if you want to continue that conversation, you follow up. But that was something really, when we talk about, you know, these galas and connecting and supporting, you know, your communities, that was something I'd never done before. I mean, have you ever tried that? Speed networking?
You know, I feel like when I was in Fargo and, you know, at NDSU and even through some of the leadership programs that I had done that, I do remember, you know, doing some of that. You know, when I used to work in funeral service, they had like speed interviews, you know, kind of down at the University of Minnesota. So a little bit, but those are really, really awesome and would be really fun. A little bit more challenging, you know, like in the community I'm in, 15,000 people, although there are still plenty of people I don't know. But by and large, it gets to be a lot of the same people doing the same things. But I could see where something, you know, in Fargo would be really, really cool.
Speaking of, there was a girl that asked me how the podcast was. Casey? from Park Company.
Oh, sure.
She knows your ex-girlfriend or something.
Sure. Yeah, that could be.
She says hi.
Yeah, I've got to think of who that. I'll have to look. And I
For
think I
you.
know. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I ran into another when we were coming back from Arizona like a month ago. I was waiting outside the jetway, waiting for our stroller that we checked at the gate, and there was another lender, and I forget exactly who it was, but it said hi to me, coming out and
Yeah.
just, you're Andrew, and hey, I see your podcast with Kayla, and I really like it.
Oh, good.
So we've
Yay.
got like 2 fans out there, Kayla. I think
Great, 2 fans. We did it. I love it. Well, I'm glad. It's good to hear though, because I tell people all the time, I'm big on social media. Just because people may not, every single person is not going to like or comment. I scroll through social media and I sometimes don't like or comment, but I see it. And I think that you can get in your head a little bit. Like, is what I'm doing reaching an audience? Is it helping? Because the goal here is not to be podcast famous. I mean, maybe one day, but it's to educate and empower people. And so if we're doing that with just even a couple of people, we're doing the right thing. So
Well, and just to go out and find your people and find the people that, that what you're doing and saying resonates with, which maybe you'll be surprised, Kayla, as you go to your galas, you may find some more fans there. I'm really excited. We have a couple of ones that are coming up here. One is kind of a denim and diamond theme. My wife was showing her outfit off this morning and said, "Hey, what do you think? I still have to come up with something, and I've got another week, so I better get moving on that."
Oh, just pull up the old like Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake get up. Like you could totally redo that.
Well, I think that there's a group we're going with, and I think one couple is kind of doing that. But
well,
I've got to do a little planning and shopping. If not, I'll be up the night before with the hot glue gun and gluing diamonds onto a shirt.
I love it. Enjoy. I mean, it's fun to get dressed up. It's all for a good cause too. For
sure.
I love it.
Kayla, what are we seeing, or what are you seeing out there, with rates right now? Because, we've talked our last couple of episodes just about, kind of some changes, that we're seeing out there, and, things were really active. Rates had fallen, and, now all of a sudden, we're kind of seeing things tick back up a little bit.
I don't think anyone saw rates, being in March where they're at. I mean, they're right under 7%. Thank you. 6.9, right under that 7% mark, and FHA is at 6.4. So, when we look at this, I think there's a lot of individuals who are really just trying to time the market, Andy. And my advice, we don't try to time the market. If you can afford something now, if you want to start creating equity now, take that step, because we don't know. I mean, I really wish that I could tell you, but even the Barry Habibs of the world are not able to say, here's when rates are going to drop, here's what they're going to drop to. So I think throughout this year, we will see slower declines, but I don't think it's going to be this, the Fed is dropping rates 6 massive times. The Fed is going to drop their rates, the federal funds rate, but how is that going to impact interest rates for mortgages? And also, it's, as I said it last time, it's an election year. So we don't know what's going to happen. So my best advice is stop focusing on the rate, start focusing on your goals, your payment, and not just your principal and interest, but what is your mortgage insurance payment? And, what are you paying for fees? And, all of these other things, insurance, and really focus on that, because you'd be surprised how many people, when I say, oh, that rate difference between 6.875 and 7.25 is $40 a month or $60 a month, they're like, wait, what? That's it? We get so focused on just a number, and we don't really know what it means until someone breaks it down for us. Yep. So that's my spiel on rates.
I like it. Well, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting year, Kayla. And, I think obviously the Fed now is saying, maybe we'll see 3 rate cuts, as early as June. I think the first one will come. We'll welcome that for sure.
June.
What's that?
That's what I'm hearing too, is June. So, But here's the thing. If you buy a house, if you make an offer in May, you maybe float the rate till June. Like, when do you buy the house then? Because it's like, you can't typically lock until you find a home. And then when are you closing? Is it June 15th? Is it, July 1st? So it's really like, there's hopes that these rates come down, but if you're trying to time it, it's like, it's so difficult.
Yep. Well, and also the competition factor, like we often talk about, there's less competition right now. Of course, less homes as well. But I think the theme of the year, especially for buyers, for the most part, Kayla, is going to be affordability. I came
Mhm.
across, this article just today from Inman talking about how rent is now more affordable. Well, I'm going to have to. I thought I was logged in, but
Yeah,
uh,
I make you log in, I know.
but it must have kicked me out of Inman. But again, basically just saying that rent in
Mhm.
all 50 states is more affordable than home ownership, and that is an enormous problem.
Mhm. And that I remember when it wasn't. I remember people saying, "Gosh, I could buy a house for so much cheaper." So this is an interesting article.
Right.
Um,
Well, even talking, in the headline here, Katie or Kayla, how
and
how uh how the top 50 cities sort above the average rent by more than $1,000. So by and large, you can rent for 1,000 less
mm,
per month than what your mortgage rate is.
and that is scary. I mean, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to have to pay more. And I think too about affordability. Let's be real. When you have a home, there is maintenance, there's upkeep. When clients come to me and they say, "Kayla, what's my payment?" Andy, I can tell them payment all day. Principal, interest, taxes, insurance, specials, HOA, etc. But I don't know what the electric bill is going to be, or their city of West Fargo, or their gas, or are you paying for Wi-Fi? Are you paying for cable? And so there's all these things that are so unknown that are included with rent. You know what I mean? It's like I write one check and I know it. So I understand where a consumer is fearful of home ownership because it's a lot of unknowns. It really is.
Yep, yep, it is for sure. Kayla, another interesting, piece that I came upon that I wanted to share is just the fact that U.S. home price growth accelerates in January at the fastest pace since 2022. So basically saying that their index tallied a 6% annual increase in January, meaning that home values are increasing, at basically what I would call a ridiculous rate.
Question for you. Are you seeing when you see prices increasing, obviously, supply, demand, etc., but are you seeing that correlate to the same way that homes are appreciating? Are you seeing this as a good thing for homeowners currently when prices go up, or is it completely, are you seeing a different spectrum here? Appreciation versus rising prices.
I mean, I think obviously if you own a home, it's a positive thing because many people live and abide by the moniker that hey, your home is your largest asset, unless you follow like the Robert Kiyosaki school of thought that really considers a house a liability, or kind of when you're looking at the definition of an accredited investor, you can't count basically the equity from your home. So I think it depends on what you look at, but we'll use the simplified, piece in that, hey, it's your largest asset. So for those that own a home, fantastic. But I think, especially with inflation, we're seeing the divide, grow, compared to those who do have or can afford home ownership and those who can't. I don't think that's a positive thing. We've talked about in the past and shared, studies. I think about how much better individuals do, or even families, if they own a home, and just the importance of home ownership, keeping in mind, of course, it's not everyone's goal to own
Mhm.
real estate. Some people are very content renting, but I think overall, I think we have a huge problem which stems all the way back from the housing crash of '08, when all of these builders went out of business. So many of them disappeared for a good decade, and then we're really behind. And then you take marketplaces like mine, where we don't even have the lots ready to go to
Mhm.
build houses. There are builders that would come and build here tomorrow, but we're not set up
Mhm.
and ready to go. So I think that even though I love to see appreciation, I love to look at my home value and even investment properties that I have. I think it's a slight negative because it's just going to keep you know continuing that divide, and at some point I feel like something has to give, although again, with such low
Mhm.
inventory, I don't think we're going to see a major crash, but I
Mhm.
don't know.
Well, and you think too, it's like you want your home value to go up, but with home values going up, your property taxes are going to go up. So it's just like there's good and bad. You just have to find what works for you. But I really, that article makes me think, okay, at what point are clients going to say, I'm just going to buy, or I'm just going to get off the fence? Because I think I counted, was it right around 40 people or so shopping right now? And that's just in Fargo Moorhead and West Fargo. And it's like, I think people are so confused on what to do. And I think the media also just confuses them even more.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, Kayla, which kind of brings me to another piece that I came across that really resonated with me and just talked about, insights for real estate professionals and, what we need this spring selling season. So this is good for any of our fellow agents, lenders, but even for consumers out there to know what's going on. And number one, Kayla, consumers are prioritizing affordability. We just talked about that, affordability over location. Obviously, in my immediate market, there's a slight division between neighborhoods, but it's not even like Fargo where, you have so many more options. There are a lot of great options here, but affordability, is really, really key as, we're coming off a high inflationary cycle and people just feel really, really squeezed. It also goes on to talk about, Kayla, that people are seeking new scenery. And this, hits home with me as I just sold a very, very rural property. Basically in a city that you'd call unincorporated in a sense, almost. And the group moved here from the East Coast, just a family that's like, hey, we can work remote. We want to raise our family somewhere else. Hey, there's fiber internet there. Fantastic. That's all we need. So we're looking for a major change of scenery. So I certainly see that already. And, really another piece is keeping up with the Joneses, the influence of social media. And this is something that they've cited, is maybe, more of a factor in luxury or people buying higher end homes because, of course, they're maybe going to parties, they're going to a pre-gala party or something, and they see their friends, brand new house, and they're like, hey, I really, really want that. So they want to keep up, with the Joneses. But those are some of the biggest pieces, and kind of tying back in, Kayla, to the fact that it really makes sense to align yourself with great, professionals, put together that team, your lender, your real estate agent, your general banker, your insurance agent, your attorney, and so on and so forth.
It's important. I think you're so spot on. I think about, realtors being inside of all these beautiful homes and builder, new home specialists being in these homes, and social media allows you to see what everyone else has. But, I have a friend who would make a comment now and then, and she'd say, oh, that person is so successful. And I'm like, how do you know that? And she finally now has gotten it. And I'm like, just because something shows up on social media that they might have a fancy car or it looks like their business is doing well, you don't know that. You don't know if one person has a ton of debt and they're just barely getting by. And I think that I heard something the other day. It had to do with the national debt. And we are seeing credit card debt at an all-time high. And one of the reasons that statistics show is that, or surveys should show rather, was that people are just not willing to give up the things that they've been paying so much for, even though everything else is so much more expensive. They're paying it and they're getting into debt in hopes that, well, things will settle down here, but it's really not. And it's spot on to keeping up with the Joneses.
Right.
Keeping up with the Yankees.
Keeping up with the calendars.
Oh gosh, did we just open Pandora's box?
We maybe did. Why are you picking on me so much today, Kayla?
I don't know. I really am.
Hey, it was a slip.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
Oh, Kayla. Well, hey, Kayla, I want to dive into a topic. Big changes are coming in real estate. And I was talking to Pat Stoa, our friend, Fargo agent, yesterday, and we were talking, just about, and I said, hey, I still consider myself the new kid on the block in real estate, having jumped in, in the fall of 2020, but already the change has been just so immense. It's been kind of fun, but probably one of the most monumental changes that the real estate industry has ever seen is coming. And most of you, if you're watching this, you've probably seen the headlines. And, this is just on CNN, the 6% commission on buying and selling a home is gone after Realtors Association agrees to seismic settlement. And I mean, Kayla, there's been so much clickbait out there.
I know.
So many pieces about how, the 6% commission is dead, big changes are coming, buyers, you're on your own, whatever. And so I think this is something that has been on the horizon for a while. There have been a variety of lawsuits. The Department of Justice has been after the real estate industry, for quite a number of years, trying to decouple commissions.
Mhm.
And now, after losing their Sitzer-Burnett landmark lawsuit, the National Association of Realtors, which is the trade group that most real estate agents belong to, has decided to settle, which is really opening a huge can of worms. And there are a lot of implications.
There are. And I think there's a lot of noise around this, that it's not very clear. And I think it's just something else that's, I think everything's going to be just fine. But until things get figured out and straightened out and what's going to happen, I think a lot of people are seeing this as, oh, I can now negotiate my commissions, and that I pay my realtor. Well, you've always been able to.
Mhm.
And the biggest takeaway that I have as a lender, and I see purchase agreements all day. I see representation disclosures all the time. But I think what the biggest concern or change or question is, in my opinion, as a lender, is how are buyers going to afford paying for their own agent? I think that's just the question that's being seen in the media, is how are they going to afford that? And I think that if we circle kind of back to how they're getting paid now, buyer's agents are getting paid right now traditionally by the sellers that are selling their home, who are paying that agent to list it. Traditionally, what are you seeing in your market? 6% to list?
Well, so let's back up just a second, because there are probably some people out there, Kayla, that are watching like, whoa, like this is already too deep. I don't know anything about real estate. I mean, I've had some individuals who have been, successful CEOs who have, recently come in wanting to talk about this and just real estate in general, saying like, hey, we've done things privately purchasing. We've been in our home forever. We've never had to do this. How do we do it? So, traditionally, when you're selling your home, you're going to sit down with an agent of your choice. You're going to sign a listing agreement, and in that agreement, the compensation that you're paying that agent is going to be defined. We won't get too deep into that piece, other than traditionally, out of that total compensation, your listing agent is going to give another agent, if they bring a buyer, they're going to cooperate with that other agent and give that agent kind of a piece of the pie if they bring a buyer, and we get everything to closing. So technically the sellers are not offering anything, but kind of that's the whole piece, behind, this lawsuit, kind of talking about the thought that there's a 6% commission standard, and for any number of reasons, that really isn't negotiable. There's price fixing and the like, and it's very much negotiable. Kayla, I've charged, as low as 0.5% for something, all the way up to, north of 10% on some transactions, when a greater number of services are being provided to that individual, and they see that value. So things have always been negotiable, but they really just want to see that commission decoupled, as they say, meaning that, instead of, we'll use their 6% average, since they're calling it out in the article, instead of charging that, maybe we're going to charge 3%, and the seller's not going to pay anything towards a buyer's agent. Right. The buyer will then effectively be responsible for paying their own agent. And Kayla, I've got a couple of slides I want to just share that kind of hit some of these bullet points, if you don't mind.
No, I love it. This is helpful to anyone that's watching too.
Yep. And so I think, just really quick, a couple of things I want to point out is that this is a proposed settlement. It's supposed to settle in July. Right now, it's kind of business as usual, but we're having more conversations. What this is actually going to look like is really anybody's guess. It may not even settle, and we may continue on, but there will be some major change coming. And so basically what's going to happen is, right now when we list a property in the MLS, we're putting an offer of compensation for a buyer's agent. Now, a part of the settlement is going to mean that that has to disappear from the MLS or from Zillow. You'll even see, a certain percentage, cooperative compensation. So that needs to disappear from the MLS. Sellers may offer concessions via the MLS that could include buyer's broker compensation. However, the agent's going to have to make sure that they ask for that in the purchase agreement. Subject to open negotiations in the purchase contract, and a buyer's agent may not be paid more than the pre-negotiated amount on the buyer's rep agreement. So I've seen some agents that'll say, hey, we're going to charge 2.5%, or we'll say 3%. If the listing agent is going to offer concession wise up to 4% or whatever, you can't automatically get that if you're willing to represent your buyer for less. So that's one piece that's important to note. Kayla, a lot of agents have said, well, hey, my services don't cost you anything. The seller is going to pay, or the seller's agent is going to pay for my services. So agents can't represent themselves as having free services unless there truly are no financial compensation from any sources. The buyer's broker has to negotiate a fee and services prior to showing a property. It can't be considered open. And Kayla, that means as well, right now, a lot of agents, and I'm guilty of it too sometimes, especially with people I know well, that, hey, I'll go meet you at the house and we'll look at it. You need to have a buyer's representation agreement in place. Otherwise, you're in violation of rules. You can be fined, or there can be sanctions put against your license. And really the last bullet point, Kayla, is that no requirement of blanket, unconditional, unilateral offer of compensation to a buyer's broker may be made. So that kind of goes hand in hand with that compensation in the MLS. Sellers may negotiate buyer to buyer if asked for a concession.
Well, how do you, and it's a lot, and I do like that you preface this is happening potentially in July. There's still some things up in the air. There's still a lot of noise, but I think from a lender to a realtor standpoint, my question for you is, when you say you can't show homes unless you have an agreement that shows that you're working for that client, how will this change the landscape if so? Because I feel like, now, again, I'm not a realtor, but a lot of realtors will just go and show homes without the contract stating that they will be exclusively working with the client. Am I correct in that? That, they just show the houses, they're approved. Let's say they're approved. That's one thing you need. But also, I think they're going to work with me, but now realtors are going to say, I need your commitment that you will be working with me. And in that contract, does it need to state what the fees are? Like, hey, it's going to be X, and that could be negotiated with the seller. Is that kind of what you're thinking would be the best way to go about that?
Yep. So nobody knows how the chips are going to fall. And, I belong to a lot of real estate groups, like on social media. I'm sure you do too. I had to mute virtually all of them because it's almost pandemonium. People are freaking out and all over the spectrum as far as opinions. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm frankly not that worried, Kayla. And I'll tell you what my predictions are. Number one, I'm excited for change. Because one of the problems in real estate is that the barriers to entry are really low. Even for mortgage, I would say, Kayla. In fact, you wouldn't believe the number of emails that I'm getting just talking about, well, hey, here's an opportunity for you as an agent to make more commission. Why don't you be the lender too? No, I don't want to be the lender.
No.
I just don't have time. Yeah, could I go through the motions and put everything? Yeah, but I'm just not well positioned for that. So we know the barriers to entry are low. So honestly, I think this is going to get rid of a lot of agents because there are a ton of what I'll call less than part-time agents that are working out there, and they get a lead and they run with it. And even lately, Kayla, the number of deals that I've done with some of these agents that I'm having to do their work for them, which I know this resonates with you too. And just really having to keep things on track. It's incredibly frustrating for that. So I think that's going to be good that we're going to get a lot of agents out who really should not be in the business because they're really not, they don't have their finger on the pulse of what's actually going on and are not well positioned.
Well, I love that you say that because the thing is you have to control what you can control. We can't control rates. We can't control inventory. We can't control this. But I love your thought process too, Andy, because right now as a lender, I get to work with many different realtors, and I can tell you that there are some really incredible realtors who understand things that I'm just so impressed. Like they're really looking out for their client. It's not just about finding the client the home, it's about what happens after they find the home. It's about the negotiations, the contract, the repairs. There's so many things that happen. It's not just about finding you a home. And so when I think about kind of clearing out anybody kind of in the weeds, I think this is excellent for the consumer because everybody knows somebody and you feel bad not using your cousin's, friend's hairstylist, mom as your realtor. And I get that. And I feel that for the clients. They're like, well, I know someone and I better use them. And that's great for that person. That's the realtor. But when I see the service and the level of that service that clients are getting with someone like you, Andy, versus somebody that's just does one or two. I mean, the average realtor I heard on a podcast yesterday sold 1.3 homes last year. And I was like, excuse me. And now it kind of makes sense because if you're not in it, how can you have a heart surgeon be a really great heart surgeon if he does one surgery a year? I'll be very honest. And that's me getting defensive of the consumer because they deserve the best. And so I think that you're spot on with this will allow people to maybe decide, do they want to stay in this or do they want to work hard and be awesome and, stick this out?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kayla, and all in the defense of the consumer, which, arguably that's what this, settlement and whole ruling is going after, and the goal, as we talk about affordability, there's some thought out there that that home prices, if commissions are chopped in half using that 6% number, home prices are going to decrease by 3%. I don't think it'll have any bearing on price because the market is going to speak as far as what an individual's willing to pay. But Kayla, did you see the clip? Everyone has an opinion on that. Even our commander in chief, President Biden, had an opinion. Did you see that?
Yeah. Did we send this to each other on Facebook? I can't
remember. We maybe did. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, because I think I said some swear words to you in a text message, actually.
Here we go. Here, I found a quick TikTok. Let's see if we can get this to work, Kayla, because
for the first time that Americans can negotiate lower commissions when they buy or sell their home. On a typical home purchase, that alone can save folks an average of $10,000 on the sale or purchase. I'm calling on realtors to follow through on lowering their commissions to protect home buyers.
I rarely.
What do you think about that, Kayla?
We're talking about the person in general, or how I feel about him, or do
President Biden is calling on realtors to lower their commissions to save home buyers money.
It honestly, there's two things in life that make my blood boil, and it's animal abuse, you know this, and someone in a position like that speaking out of their butt. Because I truly feel like he just has so much misinformation. And instead of calling on people that really rely on this commission, to feed their families, why don't we then implement something, whether it's the GSEs or it's something that, Biden can implement for first-time home buyers or repeat? Why aren't we doing that versus saying, hey, realtors, let's take from your pockets? And it's just so untrue that first sentence he says. It's like, for the first time. Really? Right. I know he's reading off of, a teleprompter, but he should probably understand that. So, okay, but that's my opinion, Andy. You go ahead.
I was just thinking back to a recent transaction I had, Kayla, where, the buyer who was coming to buy this property went through basically 3 different lenders, was denied FHA, conventional. And then, we were able to find a hard money lender and get things done. But just thinking about that, and, there are a lot of individuals who, who us as agents, we work really hard for our buyers. And there are some transactions that are slam dunks. But I was just looking back kind of in my platform, in my CRM, Kayla, as I talked to these sellers who I was representing, helping them navigate this. We exchanged 18 emails, 196 text messages, 70 phone calls. just the amount of time and effort and energy, to get this done. And hey, that's what we're here for. And I'm really glad, we were able to find a great resolution. But it just shows, what we're doing as professionals, you as a lender, and I had some great lenders that were really working through this process, trying to help people get to their goals. But yeah, so it's a little disheartening when you're hearing from President Biden, but I think you also have to consider the source and the mental status as well.
That's true. Well, I just hope that, individuals stop and think, like, continue to have conversations with your lenders, your realtors. Like I have, I'm kind of unbiased in this, in the fact that, like, it's not affecting me directly, but I am such a big support of having people represented, because I see what happens when you don't have representation, and my heart just drops because I see how people don't know how to write up purchase agreements. In fact,
have you had, since this news came out, Kayla, have you had any instances where you're getting buyers that are unrepresented?
So yes, but I don't think it's related to this.
Okay.
Where I've had 3 individuals, 3 families that it's whether it's family or they're buying the house that they're already living in. So they're like, well, we don't need a realtor because, we're already living in the house, we're renting it, those situations. And I tell people as the lender, I can tell you what's like missing, like some certain things, but I'm not a licensed real estate agent. I cannot tell you how to write a contract, nor can I provide you an example. And so I see what happens, and there's no discussion of like a home inspection. There's no discussion of proration of taxes. And I think that people just assume that, oh, I can just write it up and buying the house. But the level of details that go into a purchase agreement about a property that you're going to own, I mean, this is your biggest purchase. Why wouldn't you have a professional write that up? I mean, like when I think about getting a cavity filled, like we talk about this all the time, we hire a professional. And I think that it's very easy for just anyone in life to assume what someone else's job consists of until you then are in that position or you get burned. And so with these 3 people, I've had to tell them, like, I've given them advice and I've said, there's a lot missing. And I said, you should just talk to a realtor, have that conversation. Would you rather pay some money up front to have them write this contract? Or would you, and if something goes wrong, what are you going to do? I can't help you in that case. I can tell you where to go, but it's scary, Andy, because I just think people think it's easy, and it's not. And it's so important to have representation.
Well, yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that, Kayla. So I think, kind of as a wrap up today, I'm going to give my predictions. I want to hear your predictions as well.
Sure.
Well, obviously, we've talked about this proposed settlement and all of the pieces, that are going to come into play, and updated practices as far as how business is done and how agents are compensated. So I think number one, Kayla, as we already talked, I think a lot of agents are going to disappear, even probably a few more lenders, although it will have an impact on lenders, but I think it's going to be good for the consumer. So number one, I think that'll happen. I think you're going to see a certain number of agents that are maybe specializing in certain niches. Like I could see, hey, $995 first-time home buyer special, where you come and you work with me. I'm going to help you through the process. They're going to try to negotiate a little bit more if they're able to do so and get some concessions, kind of in the hope that that individual is going to sell and they'll come back to them. Mm-hmm. Number 3, I think you're going to see a variety of agents start offering a menu of services for fees. We've already started doing that. Like even last fall, I've been pondering, how do we create a more lean, mean, kind of brokerage machine. And obviously I'm brokered through eXp Realty. I got my broker's license. So if I wanted to go out on my own tomorrow, I could do so. Right now, I haven't made any moves, but that could be a possibility if I'm not seeing the value as things shift. We'll have to see what happens. But, we're already charging retainer fees and, even have a billable rate for the services we provide because we're professionals and should be paid as such. I think there are some people out there that think it's going to be business as usual and nothing's going to change. I would disagree. I look at, there are a lot of countries, especially European countries, and even, you get like down to Australia where this has kind of been the case for many, many years, where people reach out to the listing agent. So I think listing agents, and I'm lucky to have a business that's heavy on listings as well, Kayla. So I think a lot more people are going to come to me. I'm going to have kind of a system in place and have, a team in place to help show the properties. However, if no additional compensation is being offered, we're not going to enter into a dual agency situation, meaning I'm not going to technically provide representation to that individual if they're looking, to write an offer on the property. But we may go back to that list of services, and I might say, hey, I'm going to charge you X number of dollars to write the purchase agreement and help guide you through the process. But this is me representing you. I'm representing the seller. So I think those are some of the biggest pieces. I think, we're going to see more AI, more technology enter into real estate. I think, Zillow's, kind of sitting back, and some of the other big players are kind of licking their chops and saying, okay, where can we go from here? And how can we become even more dominant in the marketplace?
I agree. And I love all that. And I think too, realtors need to be better at articulating their value. I don't think they've had to really, as a listing agent more so, you have your listing presentation. I think there's a lot of realtors that do have their, buyer consults. But I think that for so long, I can understand out of anybody as a lender, you're told, oh, I was told to go shop around. Well, I feel like realtors are now in that situation. They're going to get shopped just like us lenders have. And so I feel like I can relate to realtors and say, you really need to articulate what value you're bringing. And I love your ideas, Andy, of menu of services and things that you can do, because I think as a realtor, you need to focus on, this is not a 30 to 60 day transaction. As a lender, I tell my clients, I'm here for you forever. I want to be here for you, not just for this. And I think now there's a lot of agents that are just, hey, I'm here to help you find your dream home and buy. You really got to hone in on, what are you doing for this client, not just for this, but after they find the home, after they close, and so on, because I think that's going to be a big differentiator for sure.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts that you have, or takeaways, or things that you're thinking we're going to see, Kayla?
I just think that you're spot on. I think we'll see some fallout, but I think this is going to be great for the consumer. I also think that we're just going to have to pivot, and we've had to do this before. And at the end of the day, we're better than anyone at doing this. And I think of someone like you, Andy, that got in the business when things were changing constantly. And that's kind of when I started to do more origination, and it's always changing. It's ever changing. And that's the only constant in this business. And if you're not willing to change, then I would suggest that you potentially look for a different career path, because at the end of the day, this is for our clients and you have to be on board.
Well, I think at the end of the day, Kayla, find your passion, and the money will come. And I look around here, and I've seen, again, with those low barriers to entry and everything, just a lot of people hanging out, to get an occasional nice commission check. But I don't see a lot of passion or effort or energy. So I'm really looking forward to this, what I'm going to call the great reset in real estate. And I'm really happy and excited, to have, great partners, like you, even standing by my side to, kind of, bounce ideas off of, and just kind of work in what does kind of that next level experience look like. So I'm excited, Kayla. I think we're going to have a lot more to talk about. And I think some great offerings that are going to help, consumers and even agents and lenders navigate this as we go forward.
And I think we'll continue to talk about this on the podcast going forward and give highlights. And as we navigate this, we'll share with the audience too.
Absolutely. Well, Kayla, this has been a doozy. It's been a lot of information, a lot, that, again, I think we still have a tough time wrapping our head around, and the consumer too. But again, if anyone is watching this, has any questions or wants to talk scenarios, feel free to reach out. And Kayla, as always, great connecting with you. I hope you have a great rest of the week.
I will if you will.
See ya. Bye.